fiction, nonfiction, regardless, we're going to talk about Princess Diana today. I have a lot of research that I've done on her life, and I'm sure I missed a ton of stuff. I'm not really going to go too deep into the conspiracies as to why she died or things like that. I'm just going to tell you her life from beginning to end as I could find it. And then we'll go from there. So, Diana Frances Spencer was born July 1st, 1961, in Norfolk, England. She was the third in line of Lord and Lady Althorp's 4 children, but they weren't Lord and Lady yet. We'll get there. Diana was born in Park House, a 9-bedroom mansion located on the Queen's grounds at Sandringham. The house itself was built in 1863 by the Prince of Wales, who was later King Edward VII, to accommodate the overflow from his royal home, Sandringham House. Born to 2 wealthy parents, Diana grew up pretty much adjacent to aristocracy. One of her playmates was reportedly Prince Andrew, who is Charles's brother. Queen Elizabeth II was her brother's godmother, and Charles, then 17, once interrupted 5-year-old Diana's tea party with his brother Andrew. Diana's mother, Frances Shand Kidd, was the daughter of wealthy Anglo-Irish baron. Diana's father, the Viscount Althorp, became an earl in 1975, and he was a direct descendant of King Charles II. My opinion, that's a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a lot of weight to manage at such a young age, but the Spencers have been a prominent family since the 15th and 16th century, according to a book about the family's history. They made their initial fortune in sheep farming, and they never lost this fortune. In 1975, Diana earned the title of Lady when her grandfather died, and her father became the 8th Earl Spencer. Now the Spencer men have their earlships, but it's the Spencer women who have made headlines over the years. While Diana is the most famous of all the Spencers, she's descended from other fascinating females. Sarah Marlborough was Queen Anne's controversial confidant, and Georgiana, Duchess of Devonshire, became a celebrity in the Georgian era England for her unusual marriage arrangements. But we're not here to talk about them. Clearly, Diana's childhood was one of privilege and esteem. But was it joyful? One of her nannies weighed in with her opinion and said, remarry a woman named Rain Legge, whose mother was Barbara Cartland, a romance novelist. Never heard of her, didn't look. According to Diana's brother, Diana really felt abandoned by their mother. He said he remembered that while she was packing to leave, she promised Diana that she would come back and see her. And Diana used to wait on the doorstep for her, but she never came, which is so sad. Diana's academic career was pretty unremarkable. I looked into this a lot to try to give you guys more information, but there just wasn't a lot. She was tutored at home until age 9, and then she was sent to Riddlesworth Hall in Norfolk. I couldn't really find out why she all of a sudden wasn't being tutored at home anymore. The only thing I can think is that her mom wasn't there anymore and the dad made this decision. And I couldn't find out if Diana was happy with it or didn't like it at all. At the age of 12, Diana then began attending exclusive West Health School in Kent, England. When she was 14, her life changed again abruptly. As I mentioned before, her grandfather died, and this made her father the 8th Earl Spencer and the heir to the family's home. But Althorpe was no ordinary home. The mansion had belonged in the Spencer family for over 500 years. That's absolutely crazy to me. It's a beautiful home. If you've never seen it, I definitely recommend looking at pictures of it. Originally, Sir John Spencer purchased Althorpe in 1508. The estate sits on 13,000 acres in the English countryside, and it contains 28 buildings and structures, and the 100,000 square foot mansion is just the beginning. I'm not going to talk too much about Althorpe and all the things included there, but I'm just going to continue with Diana. After failing to pass 2 exams, she left West Health at the age of 16. Her father then sent her to a Swiss school, but she quickly became homesick and returned to Norfolk. She then hired herself out as a part-time cleaning lady and found work as a kindergarten teacher's assistant. From what I can tell, Diana was passionate about a number of things outside of school. She was a swimmer, a skier, a tennis player, a pianist, and above all, she, like me, wanted to be a ballerina. However, at 5'10", she struggled to pursue this as a career. At the age of 17, she reached out to the Vancini Dance School to train to become a dancing teacher if she was unable to be a ballerina. Madame Vancini told the author of the book The Real Diana that Diana only trained for a month, and then she went skiing and never came back. She said, I think she felt that the training 3 years and until 6:30 in the evening would be too much. And the book says that Diana never gave a reason for not returning to the school. Simply put, it seemed like becoming a dance teacher wasn't her passion. Dancing was. Whenever she was feeling stressed, Diana would dance. She indeed had the odd jobs, such as cleaning houses and serving appetizers at cocktail parties and the kindergarten teacher's assistant, but she wasn't really finding her place in life. And although Prince Charles had known Diana almost all of her life, he at first recalled her as a playmate for his younger brother. Remember, he had interrupted the tea party. And at this time in her life, he was dating Diana. she would not marry Charles if he were the dustman or even the King of England. Their relationship fizzled out shortly after Charles saw the article and told her, "You've just done something incredibly stupid." Why would you do that? Why would you go to a reporter and say all of that? Originally, Sarah had been a match for Charles, but during a ski trip in February 1978, she blew her chance. She allegedly told a journalist named James Whittaker that she had an eating disorder, she had thousands of boyfriends, and she wouldn't marry Charles, even if he was the King of England. Their relationship fizzled out pretty shortly after Charles saw the article and told her, "You have just done something incredibly stupid." I never found out if she regretted it or not, but Sarah introduced Charles and Diana in 1977. In fact, Diana taught Charles how to tap dance on a terrace, which I thought was cute. He thought she was adorable, full of vitality and terribly sweet. He was struck by what a very amusing, jolly, and attractive 16-year-old she was. And Diana had decided that the prince was pretty amazing. So, while Lady Sarah wasn't swept off her feet by Charles, it was apparently a different story for Diana. She allegedly told her friends that she would marry him one day, adding that he would be the one man on the planet who was not allowed to divorce her. However, Diana later told biographer Andrew Morton, the author of Diana, her true story, which I read and will quote a lot in this video. He said that she told him that her first thoughts of Charles were less than gushing, saying that she recalled thinking, "God, what a sad man." However, Charles, on the other hand, thought that Diana was too young to consider a marriage proposal, and their romance did not bloom for a few years. In fact, it wasn't until 3 years after that first tap dancing encounter that Charles and 18-and-a-half-year-old Diana met again. In July 1980, they were both invited to a weekend barbecue at a friend's house in Sussex. Diana recalled that she was asked to stay with some friends, and they said, "Oh, the Prince of Wales will be here." And Diana said, "Oh, I haven't seen him in ages." And she added that she knew he had just broken up with his girlfriend, and Mountbatten had just been killed, and she thought it would be nice to see him. She was quite unimpressed by Charles at this time. She sat there and he walked in and she thought, he was just different. But at this time, Charles seems quite taken by Diana. She said in these tapes to Andrew that he was all over her. She added that they were talking about Mountbatten and the fact that Charles had broken up with his girlfriend, and Diana said to him, "You must be so lonely. It's pathetic watching you walk up the aisle with Mountbatten's coffin in front, and ghastly. You need someone beside you." And this is where Charles made his move and started kissing her. She said in the tapes to Andrew Morton that at this point Charles was all over her. She remembers talking about Mountbatten and him breaking up with his girlfriend, and recalling that she told him that he must have been so lonely, and it was pathetic to watch him walk up the aisle was as shy and awkward as Diana. But remember, her family had been connected with royals for most of her life, and she did well. She charmed everyone with her good nature and high spirits, and Charles took the next step and he asked her to accompany him to visit Highgrove. This was his country house in Gloucestershire. Diana, who was pretty used to the splendors at Althorpe, found Highgrove kind of unimpressive, and she would have been less thrilled if she had known that the primary attraction was the close proximity to Camilla's house. The couple reportedly dated mostly through phone calls in the early days of their relationship. In fact, I read that they only physically met 13 times before Charles proposed. It was most expected, and it happened at Windsor Castle in 1981. Here's how Diana herself described the moment to Andrew Morton. Charles said, "Will you marry me?" And I laughed. I remember thinking, this is a joke. And I said, "Yeah, okay." And then I laughed. He was deadly serious. And he said, "You realize one day you'll be queen?" And a voice inside me said, "You won't be queen, but you will have a tough role." "Yes," I said, "I love you so much. I love you so much." And he said, "Whatever love means." And so I thought that was great. I thought he meant that. In my immaturity, which was enormous, I thought he was very much in love with me, which he was. He sort of had the besotted look about him looking back at it, but it wasn't genuine. And then he ran upstairs and found his mother. I imagine he said, "It's done," or something terrible. Anyway. In the 2019 documentary, Charles and Di, The Truth Behind Their Wedding, royal biographer Christopher Wilson weighed in on this, and I wanted to include this because I thought it was very important. Charles didn't pick her up in his arms or embrace her or do any of the things that we might do when we propose marriage to someone we love. He simply called his mom and said, basically, "There, I've done it. You asked me to get married and I found someone who's suitable." In other words, it kind of seemed like Charles's proposal to Diana really set the tone for their marriage. News of their engagement was kept a secret for weeks, while Diana spent some time alone with her mother in Australia. In fact, Charles, said that she had planned to go to Australia for quite a long time, and he thought, well, I'll just ask her now so she can think it over while she's away, and I can decide if I can bear the whole idea or not. What? Either way, on February 24th, 1981, Buckingham Palace announced the news with a statement. "It is the greatest pleasure of the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh to announce the betrothal of their beloved son, the Prince of Wales, to Lady Diana Spencer, the daughter of Earl Spencer and the Honourable Mrs. Shand Kidd." They then had what I believe is like the strangest interview ever. Diana wore an off-the-rack blue suit from Harrods, and she showed off her stunning sapphire ring. She picked the accessory from a catalog, not like it was shown in the crown, a choice that was actually quite scandalous among the royal family. The soon-to-be Princess of Wales recounted the ghastly engagement interview to her biographer. She said, "This ridiculous newsman said, 'Are you in love?' And I thought, what a thick question. And so I replied, 'Of course we are.' And then Charles turned around and said, 'Whatever love means.' And that threw me completely. I thought, what a strange answer. It traumatized me. palace dress by Emmanuel, a fashion choice that led to serious scrutiny by the press. How shallow are we that we judge people on what they wear? Still. The entire night was later described by Diana as a horrendous occasion, as she wasn't well versed in royal protocol. One of the event's attendees, Princess Grace of Monaco, reportedly pulled Diana aside and said, "Don't worry, it'll get a lot worse." Thank you, how reassuring. Later, Diana moved up the road to Buckingham Palace, where she was given a relatively small suite of rooms on the nursery floor. I'm sure that relatively small suite is bigger than my whole house, but, you know. This was quite a depressing experience for Diana, who quickly became bored, lonely, and felt isolated. She spent most of her time alone, as Charles was quite often away, and his family paid her very little attention, assuming that she would quickly adapt to their ways, and not realizing that she was really in need of some guidance and support. When Diana found out that Charles was planning a private farewell lunch with Camilla just 2 days before their wedding, she became so upset she threatened to call the whole thing off. Diana's sisters, as they do, pointed out that it was far too late for her to cancel. They told her, "Your face is on the tea towels," which I thought was so funny. Diana was the first British citizen to marry the heir to the throne since 1659. Since Diana was Anglican, there were no legal obstacles to marry the man who, as king, would head the Church of England. In addition, a well-known saying soon made the rounds in the press. Diana had a history, but no past. This was very important to the royal family, and it was during the months before her wedding, this time where she felt so isolated and depressed, that Diana first suffered from bulimia. It is crazy to me that they drove her to an eating disorder. Anyway, she grappled with the pressures of her new position and her unease about the relationship between her fiancé and Camilla. Beyond the palace gates, the excitement of the forthcoming wedding was reaching fever pitch. The country just planned all these street parties. There was also a great deal of speculation about what Diana's dress would look like. It was made by a young couple, David and Elizabeth Emmanuel. According to them, the dress required several fittings and adjustments due to Diana's dramatic weight loss. The wedding celebrations began 2 days before the big day, with a final rehearsal in St. Paul's Cathedral, which had been chosen as the wedding venue thanks to its enormous size and central London location. The rehearsal was followed by a huge ball held by the Queen in Buckingham Palace, in which Diana attended, wearing a shocking pink skin-tight Emmanuel gown. She was just beautiful. She was just beautiful. She spent the night before her wedding at Clarence's house with her sisters and bridal attendants, all of whom had to work hard to calm her nerves as she mentally prepared for her big day. Charles sent a gift of a signet ring. He accompanied it with a note that said, "I'm so proud of you, and when you come up, I'll be there at the altar for you tomorrow. Just look him in the eye and knock him dead." The Archbishop of Canterbury and 25 other members of clergy took part in the wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana on July 29th, 1981. There were 2,500 people in the church, and of all time. It was often dubbed the most closely guarded secret in fashion history because few details were revealed until its debut on her wedding day. I was disappointed they didn't show it more in The Crown, personally, because I wasn't alive when she got married. The chosen dress was a silk taffeta fairy tale gown with 80s era defining puff sleeves and a 25-foot train, the longest in the history of royal wedding dresses. It was embellished with 10,000 mother-of-pearl sequins and pearls, reportedly costing an estimated 90,000 pounds. As a good luck charm, the Emmanuels attached an 18-karat gold trinket studded with white diamonds to the label, and they designed a matching umbrella in case it rained. Although they later revealed it was made of such light material, it certainly wasn't waterproof, and it would not have done Princess Diana much good. On the day of the wedding, we laid everything out. Diana in one room, the bridesmaids in the other. It was a very early start. Barbara Daly was there doing her makeup. All the while, Diana's hair was in rollers. At the time, they called her Shy Di, and if she said anything, she blushed. She was just magical, very special, designer Emmanuel revealed. I remember she was in Clarence's house watching a tiny portable TV, and out of the window the guards were marching by. It was hair and makeup done, and then in a split second, into the dress. There was a moment I remember saying to Diana, "Did you check the hook under her petticoat?" And I had visions of her dress falling apart down the aisle, which I imagine any big designer has moments like that. Her veil, which I know you have seen, was no less than 153 yards long, held in place by the Spencer family tiara. She carried a bouquet of gardenias, lilies of the valley, white freesia, golden roses, white orchids, and symphonitis. Her bridal slippers were embroidered with 542 sequins and 132 matching pearls. The heels were kept deliberately low as to not upstage the groom. At 5'10", Diana was exactly the same height as Charles. She was attended by 5 bridesmaids, including Princess Margaret's daughter, Lady Sarah Armstrong Jones. Prince Andrew, Prince Edward were the Prince of Wales supporters. The wedding was marked by astounding statistics, as I mentioned earlier, and some nervous mix-ups. Instead of saying Charles Philip, Diana called her soon-to-be husband Philip Charles Arthur George at the altar, and in fact, they also forgot to kiss after exchanging vows. Of course, Diana made a point of showing that she was standing tall in the ways that counted on her wedding day. When it came to the royal couple's wedding vows, Diana was the first bride in royal history to promise to love, honor, and cherish her husband, but not necessarily to obey. Diana was just 20 years old when she became the Princess of Wales, and she said that she remembered being so in love with her husband that she could not take her eyes off of him. She believed that she was just the luckiest girl in the world, that he was really going to take after her. He was going to make sure that she was okay. For the crowds outside, the next glimpse of the newly married royal couple occurred shortly afterward, when Charles and Diana made the traditional appearance on the Buckingham Palace balcony, flanked by their family members and members of the wedding party. Charles, like I said, had not sealed their vows with a kiss, but he made up for this oversight by kissing Diana groom's mischievous young brothers, Andrew and Edward, had secretly attached balloons, tin cans, and a just married sign to the back of the carriage. This absolutely delighted the crowds that had gathered to watch the newlyweds leave for their honeymoon, which involved a few days at the Broadlands, Charles's great-uncle's former county home in southeast England, followed by a Mediterranean cruise on the royal yacht, and then several weeks alone at Balmoral Castle. According to Diana, there was a third person on their honeymoon, Camilla. Charles wore the present that Camilla had given him, cufflinks with intertwined C's for their names. The honeymoon brought about some clashes in personality, and interests became quite apparent. The vast age difference. The prince was most comfortable fishing or reading. He pursued intellectual stimulation from authors such as philosophers and psychoanalysts, while Diana spent most of her time with the crew. She even thrilled the sailors with an impromptu performance on the piano. I could see how that would not necessarily mesh as in terms of a relationship. By the time they returned on their honeymoon, Diana's position as an international celebrity, on a scale that almost certainly had never been seen before, had been assured. Thanks in part to the romantic magnificence of her wedding day, that the newly married Prince and Princess of Wales' smiles masked her despair and his growing sense of unease. It would not become apparent to the public, at least for quite some time. Diana immediately began making public appearances, despite her reservations about being in the public eye. One of her first official visits was the funeral of Princess Grace of Monaco. The public loved Diana, and after the wedding, her life became an endless round of public appearances, with 170 official engagements in the first year alone. In their first 7 years of marriage, the Prince and Princess of Wales made official visits to 19 countries, and they held hundreds of hand-shaking sessions. Their first child, Prince William Arthur Philip Louis of Wales, was born June 21st, 1982. And their second, Prince Henry, Harry, Charles, Albert, David, on September 15th, 1984. According to Diana, the couple scheduled the birth of their oldest son around Charles's polo schedule. She said, when we had William, we had to find a date in the diary that suited Charles and his polo. It's crazy. I mean, I get it. But how did you know you'd get pregnant that fast? It's not that easy for everyone. According to Princess Diana, when she was pregnant with their second child, her husband not so secretly hoped that it would be a girl. When Prince Harry was born at St. Mary's Hospital in September 1984, Charles was so disappointed and even expressed a little bit of dismay over Harry's red hair. The boys were sometimes referred to as the heir and the spare, which is terrible to me. Diana was said to be a caring mother, and she was trying to raise her children as normally as possible. It was royal tradition for heirs to the throne to be born at home. However, Prince William was the first future monarch born in a hospital. Diana gave birth to both William and Harry at the Lido Wing at St. Mary's Hospital. And her parenting style was completely unconventional for a royal. She made sure that they experienced things like going to the cinema. They bought McDonald's. They went to amusement parks, the sort of thing ever-changing hairstyle and wardrobe made her a fashioned trendsetter. She called attentions to problems that needed to be called to: homelessness, drug abuse. She shook hands with patients at the AIDS ward in Middlesex Hospital, and once visited the victims of the IRA bombing in northern England. Her shaking hands with AIDS victims was a huge deal because this disease, at this point, they didn't know how it was spread, and it was believed that you could get it just from touch. And so she didn't wear a glove, and it was like this huge scandal, which, I mean, knowing what we know now, I mean, goodness. Anyway, in 1990, People magazine noted Diana was involved with 44 charities, making more than 180 visits on their behalf the previous year. She said, "I don't just want to be some name on letterhead." She was, and I thought this detail was so cute and I did not know, famous for writing thank you cards to anyone that gave her a gift. She reportedly wrote thank you notes to thousands of people that brought Prince William gifts after he was born. And today, some of her handwritten letters have been auctioned off for anywhere from $2,000 to $20,000, depending on the contents and uniqueness of the note. Diana had many A-list friends, including Elton John, George Michael, Liza Minnelli. She was friends with Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn, and she stayed at their ranch in Colorado with William and Harry for 10 days to escape the paparazzi. As I mentioned before, early in their marriage, Diana and Charles were publicly affectionate, but by 1986, their time apart and coolness towards each other were pretty obvious to the public. Rumors of problems between the royal couple surfaced just a few years after their wedding. Many reports stated that Charles quickly lost interest in his bride and spent too much time gardening. Diana was said to be self-absorbed and too interested in clothes, which I don't believe. Others noted problems such as their age difference and their difference in interests. Charles enjoyed polo and horseback riding. Diana once fell off a horse and was scared to ride after. He liked the opera. She liked ballet. Charles's friendship with Camilla was seen as a problem. It would be for me too. He had previously asked her to marry him, and the media, terrible as they were, began tracking the number of days that the Prince and Princess of Wales spent apart, noting Charles's long stays away from home. In December of 1992, it was formally announced that the royal couple was separating. In 1993, Diana announced that in an attempt to avoid the constant media coverage of her activities, she would be withdrawing from public life, although she would continue her charity work. In 1994, in an unusually honest interview, Prince Charles admitted his relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles, though he claimed that it began only after his marriage had completely broken down. In November 1995, Diana responded with a television interview of her own. This raised some eyebrows because she had informed Queen Elizabeth of the interview after it had taken place, and just days before it was scheduled to broadcast. Shortly thereafter, the Queen asked the couple to consider a divorce. On February 29, 1996, Diana gave her consent to a divorce, though she again went against tradition by not informing the Queen first. Terms of the divorce were announced in July 1996, it was said that her last words were, "My God, what's happened?" The driver and Fayed were pronounced dead at the scene, and Diana was sent to the hospital. Early reports said that she was suffering a concussion, a broken arm, and a cut on her thigh. However, the princess had suffered massive chest injuries. After being operated on for more than 2 hours, Princess Diana died. She passed away from internal bleeding at 4:53 on the morning of August 31st, 1997. The world mourned for the People's Princess. People waited up to 8 hours to sign sympathy books at St. James Palace. 100,000 people a day passed through Kensington Palace where Diana lived. Her mother stated, "I thank God for the gift of Diana, for all her loving and giving. I give her back to him with my love, pride, and admiration, to rest in peace." Queen Elizabeth II went on live television and said she was exceptional and a gifted human being. It was estimated that 2.5 billion people watched Princess Diana's funeral on television, nearly half the population of the world. I remember that. In 2019, and I'm including this here because I feel like it's important to put right here, Dr. Richard Shepard, Britain's top forensic pathologist, concluded that Diana died of a tiny, badly placed tear in the vein of her lung. Her specific injury is so rare that in my entire career I have never seen another. He believes that her death could have been prevented by one small change: a seatbelt. Had she been restrained, she would probably have appeared in public 2 days later with a black eye, perhaps slightly breathless from fractured ribs and a broken arm. The only survivor of the crash was Diana's bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones. He'd been wearing a seatbelt. So, what caused Henry Paul to dramatically lose control of the car? According to a statement, his blood alcohol level exceeded the legal blood alcohol level unit. But according to eyewitnesses, there was another element involved in the crash. Their black Mercedes was being pursued by paparazzi in cars and on motorcycles, hoping to catch a glimpse of the princess and Dodi Fayed. To this day, conspiracy theories about this crash are all over, and there are many. For example, the theories share the same thesis: it was not an accident. Again, an example. Mohammed Al-Fayed, Dodi's father, believes that Diana was pregnant with his son's child. This was disproven, by the way. Another theory posts that Diana feared an attack. In 2003, her former butler published a note that she had written after her divorce with Charles in 1996. At her lowest point, she wrote, "I'm sitting here today at my desk in October, longing for someone to hug me, to encourage me and keep me strong, and hold my head high. This particular phrase in my life is the most dangerous." And it's kind of blacked out so it doesn't show, but it says, "X is planning an accident in my car, brake failure, and a serious head injury in order to make the path clear for Charles to marry." In 2004, the British Metropolitan Police launched an investigation into the rumors. The findings of Operation Paget, as the investigation was called, were released in 2006. According to this article, police found nothing to substantiate Mohammed Al-Fayed's claims of conspiracy, and neither did anyone else. Operation Paget disposed of every substantive allegation, So did the official French inquiry. So did the independent investigations. The evidence is overwhelming that this was a traffic accident. Period. Diana, arguably the most famous woman in the world, lived her life pursued by constant paparazzi, and perhaps it's no surprise that evidence of her death was similarly captured. We'll get to that. Okay. According to a motorcycle rider for the paparazzi, one that chased the Mercedes that night, the paparazzi present at the scene did not help the car's doomed passengers. Instead, they took photos. She said that she couldn't see the car anymore because the light of the flashes was so bright. That's absolutely horrifying to me. They've been in a crash. They're dying, and you're taking pictures. All those people should be just... I want to punch them in the face. Anyway, 7 French photographers were arrested and questioned by the police. According to the New York Times, charges of manslaughter were brought against 9 photographers who followed the Mercedes and took photos, but they were found not guilty. However, 3 photographers were found guilty of invasion of privacy, and they were fined €1. Diana and Charles's 2 sons, William and Harry, Prince William and Harry, age 15 and 12, were vacationing at Balmoral Castle in Scotland at the time of the crash. Understandably, they were devastated by their mother's death. According to Prince William, Queen Elizabeth II shielded her grandsons from the ensuing news spectacle. Back then, obviously, there were no smartphones or anything like that, so you couldn't get to your news, and thankfully at the time, to be honest, we had the privacy to mourn, to collect our thoughts, and to have the space away from everyone, said Prince William in a BBC documentary. We had no idea that the reaction to her death would be quite so huge. After the accident, Queen Elizabeth chose to stay with Harry and William at Balmoral and was planning to return just before Diana's funeral. However, in not immediately addressing the nation in mourning, the Queen and the royal family were criticized for being aloof. Mary Frances, an aide to the Queen, was struck firsthand in contrast between the world's very vocal reaction to Diana's death and the royal family's silence. She said this was primarily a family that had been struck by a personal tragedy, especially for the grandchildren of the Queen, and so that was the first reaction, but I think the family was somewhat slow, perhaps, to recognize the need to step forward into their public role of showing leadership for the country in its grief about the death of its princess. On September 9th, 1997, the Queen addressed the nation in her first live broadcast since the Gulf War in 1991. We've all felt those emotions in the last few days, so what I say to you now as your Queen, and as a grandmother, I say from the heart, the Queen said, beginning her speech. First, I want to pay tribute to Diana myself. She was an exceptional, gifted human being. In good times and bad, she never lost her capacity to smile and laugh, to inspire others with her warmth and kindness. I admired and respected her for her energy and commitment to others, especially her devotion to her 2 boys. Diana's funeral was held September 6, 1997 she was walking alongside us to get us through it. During the funeral, people reflected on the attention that defined Diana's life and death. Her brother, Lord Spencer, blamed the media and called his sister the most hunted person of the modern age. Elton John performed a rendition of his famous 1973 song, Candle in the Wind, with the lyrics reworked to be about Diana instead of Marilyn Monroe. The 1997 version of Candle in the Wind remains the best-selling chart single of all time. And in a rare break in royal protocol, the Queen bowed her head as Diana's coffin went past. Her grave is on an island in an ornamental lake on her family's estate of Althorpe. The site is surrounded by 4 black swans guarding the tomb, and 36 oak trees, numbering the years of her life, are on the path to her grave. In many ways, Diana and her life story paralleled much in popular culture. She was married near the beginning of the 1980s. She had a fairy tale wedding, complete with glass coach and a dress that almost didn't fit inside. She was in sync with the wealth and the spending of the 80s. Her struggles with bulimia and depression were shared so publicly in the press, were also typical of the 80s focus on self-help and self-esteem, that she seemed to have finally begun to transcend many of her problems, made her loss of life seem all that much more tragic. In the 1980s, the realization of the AIDS crisis was one in which Diana played a significant part. As I mentioned before, her willingness to touch and hug people who suffered from AIDS at a time when many people in the public wanted them to quarantine. They were just uneducated. This really helped change how AIDS patients were treated. Today, Diana is still remembered as the people's princess, a woman of contradictions who was born into wealth, yet seemed to have a common touch, a woman who struggled with her self-image, yet was a fashion icon, a woman who sought attention but often stayed at hospitals and other charity sites long after the press had left. Her life has been the subject of numerous books and films, some of which I have mentioned already. I have read so much about her, and I've seen so many interviews and so many pictures. I feel like I know her. I feel like she was my friend. I wasn't very old when she passed, but I remember clearly seeing the pictures, there's that one picture you can see of her in the car, and just being devastated. She really was. I'm not gonna cry here, guys. I'm not. Maybe I am. She really was the people's princess. She made you believe that you could meet your prince and get married and live happily ever after, and that even if it didn't work out the way you wanted, you could still have everything you wanted. I think, this is my opinion, don't hate. I think that she was treated terribly by the royal family. I don't think maybe it was as bad as the crown portrays. Maybe it was worse. I think that Charles was in love with someone else when they got married, and he never really gave her a fair shot. I think that I'm a firm believer that while you can love many people at one time, you can only really be in love with one person at a time. That's not to say that you can't love more than one person, just, I think, I don't know. I don't think he was ever in love with her. And I think she would have done so much more than we could ever dream with Camilla, although I don't understand why. I mean, they were divorced, go be with whoever you want. I also think that the royal family, they were not too keen on the idea that she was with Dodi Fayed. He was not really what they wanted to be associated with the heir to the throne and the royal family. And I read that she had set up sort of like a press conference, or was preparing the press for some kind of announcement that she was supposed to make. Like, I think it was like the day after, so on the 31st or maybe September 1st, and a lot of people believe that she was going to announce that she was pregnant. There was some pictures where she looked a little fluffy, which good for her. She overcame the bulimia and was actually keeping down her food. Good for her for being fluffy, man. I'm fluffy. Be fluffy forever. Anyway, I think they were going to announce their engagement, and I think that the royal family did not want to see that happen, because he would be included in kind of the circle of heir to the throne, royal family-ish, and they were very, very concerned with who was involved in that circle. So no, I don't necessarily believe it was an accident. I think it's strange that this guy that was their driver had never been their driver before, and he was drinking, and if they were in a hotel, why didn't they just stay at the hotel? I don't know. There's so many things about this video. I could just talk about her for ages. Anyway, if you have not watched The Crown, go watch it. I think if you're watching this video, you will like it. If you're still here with me and not asleep or finishing this video later, please tell me what you think. I would love to know if you want to see me continue this series. It was a lot of fun for me to research, and I have several ideas of other videos. I have a list of, I think, 40 people that I would like to share with you, maybe this year and next. So comment down below if you have ideas, suggestions, if you like this video, and I will see you